October 10, 1991, and the small Arkansas town of Conway was hosting its annual Fall Harvest Fair at the county fairgrounds, an event that drew thousands of families to enjoy carnival rides, agricultural exhibits, and live entertainment. The fairgrounds sprawled across 30 acres with midway rides, livestock barns, food vendors, and performance stages, and on this Saturday afternoon over 5,000 people crowded the grounds, enjoying the perfect autumn weather. Trevor Halden was 4 years old that day, a small boy with bright red hair cut short, green eyes, and a gap-toothed smile that made strangers smile back when they saw him. He wore a blue-striped t-shirt, denim shorts with an elastic waistband, white sneakers with Velcro straps, and he carried a small toy dinosaur in his pocket that he showed to everyone he met. Trevor had come to the fair with his parents, Michael and Jennifer Halden, and his older sister Emma, who was 7, and the family had been enjoying the rides and exhibits since arriving at noon. At approximately 2:30 p.m., the family was watching the pig racing competition in the livestock arena, a covered building with bleacher seating where dozens of families gathered to watch the entertaining event. The arena was crowded with people standing in aisles and sitting on bleachers, and Trevor had been sitting between his parents while Emma sat on Michael's other side, with a clear view of the racing pigs below. During the race, Trevor told Jennifer he needed to use the restroom, and Jennifer could see the portable toilets positioned just outside the arena entrance approximately 50 feet away with a clear line of sight. "Can you wait until after this race?" Jennifer asked, but Trevor insisted he needed to go immediately, using the urgent tone that parents of young children recognize as non-negotiable. Jennifer stood to take Trevor to the restroom, but Emma also said she needed to go, and Michael was holding their jackets and the stuffed animal Emma had won earlier, creating logistical complications. "The restrooms are right there, I can see them from here," Michael said at approximately 2:35 p.m. "Trevor, can you be a big boy and go by yourself? We'll watch you the whole way, just go straight there and come straight back." Trevor nodded confidently, proud to be trusted with this independence, and he walked down the bleacher steps toward the arena exit while both parents watched him navigate through the crowd. Jennifer and Michael could see Trevor's red hair and blue-striped shirt as he walked toward the restroom area, and they watched him reach the portable toilets and go inside one of the units. "Keep watching for him to come out," Jennifer told Michael, and both parents kept their eyes on the restroom area, waiting to see Trevor emerge so they could wave him back toward the bleachers. But minutes passed and Trevor didn't come out of any of the portable toilets, and Jennifer began to feel uneasy about how long he was taking for what should have been a quick trip. At 2:42 p.m., approximately 7 minutes after Trevor had entered the restroom area, Jennifer told Michael she was going to check on him, and she walked quickly down from the bleachers toward the portable toilets. Jennifer knocked on the door Trevor had entered and called his name, but there was no response, and when she opened the unlocked door, the portable toilet was empty with no sign of her son. Within seconds, Jennifer was panicking and checking every other portable toilet in the row, opening doors and calling Trevor's name, but he wasn't in any of them, and nobody in the area had seen where he'd gone. Michael joined the search immediately with Emma in tow, and they began frantically asking people near the restroom area if they'd seen a 4-year-old boy with red hair and a blue-striped shirt, but nobody could recall seeing Trevor leave. By 2:50 p.m., fair security had been alerted that a child was missing, and announcements were being broadcast over loudspeakers asking Trevor Halden to report to the information booth and requesting all adults watch for a missing 4-year-old. In approximately 7 to 10 minutes, while his parents watched from bleachers 50 feet away, 4-year-old Trevor Halden vanished from a county fair without anyone seeing where he went after entering a portable toilet. If you want to hear how this little boy was finally found alive after 33 years, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and comment where you're watching from. Now let's continue. Conway police arrived at 3:00 p.m., and Officer Sarah Davis immediately coordinated a lockdown of the fairgrounds with all exits monitored and vehicles checked before being allowed to leave. The portable toilet Trevor had entered was examined thoroughly, and investigators confirmed it was just a standard unit with no hidden exits or unusual features, meaning Trevor had entered and then left through the same door. The question became how a 4-year-old could exit a restroom, walk past his parents who were watching for him, and disappear without being seen, especially given his distinctive red hair that should have been visible in the crowd. Bloodhounds arrived from Little Rock by 4 p.m. and were given Trevor's scent from a jacket in the Halden family's car, and the dogs tracked from the portable toilet area toward the fairground's south parking lot before losing the trail. The fact that the scent ended in the parking lot suggested Trevor had been placed in a vehicle, and investigators began the massive task of identifying everyone who'd parked in that area during the afternoon. Detective Robert Chen took over the investigation and immediately focused on the 7 to 10 minute window when Trevor had been out of his parents' sight, trying to understand what had happened in that brief time frame. Chen interviewed dozens of people who'd been near the restroom area, asking if anyone had seen Trevor exit the portable toilet or noticed anyone interacting with a small red-haired boy around 2:37 p.m. One witness, a teenage girl named Ashley Morgan, reported seeing a woman with a young boy walking quickly toward the parking area around 2:40 p.m., and the boy had been wearing what might have been a blue shirt. The woman was holding the boy's hand and they were moving fast, Ashley recalled. The boy seemed like he was being pulled along, but I just thought it was a mom in a hurry. Nothing seemed obviously wrong. This information about a woman with a child became the investigation's primary lead, and police created a composite sketch based on Ashley's description. White female, approximately 35 to 45 years old, medium build, wearing sunglasses and a baseball cap. The description was frustratingly generic, matching hundreds of women who'd been at the fair, but it gave investigators something concrete to pursue and witnesses to search for who might have seen this person more clearly. Detective Chen theorized that someone had been watching Trevor and waiting for an opportunity, and when the 4-year-old went to the restroom alone, this person had grabbed him as he exited and quickly led him away before his parents noticed. But this theory raised disturbing questions about whether Trevor had been specifically targeted, or if this was opportunistic crime by someone who'd seen a vulnerable child and acted impulsively. Michael and Jennifer were interviewed extensively about their lives and whether anyone would have motive to take Trevor, but they were a normal middle-class family with no custody disputes or concerning relationships. The decision to let Trevor go to the restroom alone became a source of crushing guilt for both parents, though investigators emphasized that the restroom had been visible and the decision seemed reasonable at the time. FBI Special Agent Catherine Wells arrived on Sunday morning and brought federal resources for what was now officially being treated as a child abduction, and she organized interviews with every fair employee and vendor. The case generated intense media coverage across Arkansas and neighboring states, with Trevor's photo appearing on television, showing his red hair and gap-toothed smile, an image that thousands of people would remember for decades. Tips flooded in from people claiming to have seen Trevor at gas stations and restaurants, but every reported sighting was investigated and found to be other red-haired children with similar features. By late October, the intensive search had been scaled back after 3 weeks produced no trace of Trevor, despite extensive investigation, and the Halden family was left to navigate the nightmare of not knowing what had happened to their son. Jennifer quit her job as an accountant and devoted herself to searching for Trevor, distributing flyers and maintaining a hotline for tips, and she appeared regularly on local news programs, keeping the case in public consciousness. The case was featured on America's Most Wanted in early 1992, and the broadcast generated thousands of new tips. But as with everything else, each lead was investigated and found to be mistaken identity or well-meaning but inaccurate information. One tip that seemed promising came from a woman in Missouri who reported that her neighbor had suddenly acquired a young son in late October 1991, claiming she'd gotten custody of the child from a relative. The neighbor was identified as Linda Hartman, a 52-year-old woman who lived alone in a small town near Springfield, and she'd introduced the boy she was calling Joshua to neighbors in early November 1991. But when FBI agents investigated, they determined that Joshua was actually Linda's grandson whose mother had entered rehab, and the timing was coincidental, not connected to Trevor's disappearance. By 1995, the case had essentially gone cold with periodic reviews, but no active investigation, and Trevor Halden became another child who'd vanished at a public event despite his parents being nearby. Age progression photos were created showing what Trevor might look like at 10, then 15, then 25, and these images were distributed through missing persons databases as technology advanced. Michael and Jennifer's marriage survived, though it was severely strained, and they had another child in 1995, a son they named Dylan, though they never forgot or replaced Trevor in their hearts. The years accumulated with painful slowness for the Halden family, with 1991 becoming 2000 and then 2010, and Trevor's room remained exactly as it had been, filled with toys and books for a 4-year-old who'd never come home. Jennifer became a tireless advocate for missing children, working with organizations to improve Amber Alert systems and pushing for better security protocols at public events like fairs and festivals. She testified before the Arkansas legislature in 2005 about the need for mandatory surveillance cameras at large public gatherings, and her advocacy helped pass Trevor's Law, requiring enhanced security at state-sponsored events. Michael struggled with survivor's guilt and the decision to let Trevor go to the restroom alone, and he required therapy to process the trauma of losing his son in what should have been a safe, supervised environment. Emma grew up defined by the absence of her younger brother, and she became a child psychologist specializing in trauma, channeling her experience into helping other children who'd survived or witnessed traumatic events. Detective James Morrison took over the cold case in 2010, and he was struck by how little physical evidence existed beyond witness descriptions that had led nowhere, and he wondered if modern technology could reveal something investigators in 1991 had missed. Morrison used enhanced database searches and social media to look for adults who might match Trevor's age and general description, but had questionable origin stories or adoption records that couldn't be fully verified. By 2020, Trevor would have been 33 years old, possibly with a career and family of his own, and Jennifer held memorial services each October 10th, though she'd never truly accepted that her son was dead. True crime podcasts rediscovered Trevor's case in the late 2010s, and several shows featured detailed episodes about the Fall Harvest Fair disappearance and the mysterious woman in sunglasses who'd been seen with a boy matching Trevor's description. In August 2024, a genealogist named Maria Santos, who specialized in helping adoptees find their biological families, was contacted by a client named Joshua Hartman, a 37-year-old man from Missouri seeking information about his origins. Joshua explained that he'd been raised by his grandmother, Linda Hartman, who died in 2022, and while going through her belongings, he'd found documents that raised questions about his early childhood. "I always believed my mother had left me with my grandmother when I was 4 because she'd gone to rehab," Joshua told Maria, "but I found my mother's death certificate showing she actually died in 1990, a year before I supposedly came to live with Linda." This discrepancy troubled Joshua, and he'd also found childhood photos of himself at Linda's house starting around age 4 or 5, but no photos from before that age, which seemed unusual. Maria agreed to help Joshua investigate his origins using DNA testing and genealogical databases, and she submitted his DNA to several services to see if any biological relatives could be identified. When the DNA results came back in September 2024, they showed unexpected matches to people Joshua had never heard of, including a woman named Emma Halden Walker, who appeared to be a close biological relative. Maria contacted Emma to inform her that someone claiming to be Joshua Hartman had DNA indicating he might be her sibling, and Emma's world stopped as she realized the implications. "My brother Trevor disappeared when he was 4 in 1991, Emma told Maria, her voice shaking. "He would be 37 now, the same age as your client, and he had red hair just like I do. Could Joshua possibly be Trevor?" Maria immediately contacted Arkansas State Police, and Detective Sarah Chen from the Cold Case Unit began the process of comparing Joshua's DNA against the Halden family's genetic profiles that had been entered into databases decades earlier. The DNA comparison took 6 weeks, and when results came back in November 2024, they showed a 99.98% probability that Joshua Hartman was biologically Trevor Halden, the child who disappeared from a county fair 33 years earlier. The confirmation sent shockwaves through the cold case community and made international headlines. A missing child found alive as an adult who'd been raised under a false identity just 2 hours from where he'd been taken. Jennifer and Michael, now in their 60s, received the call from Detective Chen that would change their lives forever, learning that the son they'd lost at a fair in 1991 had been alive the entire time, living in Missouri as Joshua Hartman. "Trevor is alive," Jennifer sobbed to Michael. "Our baby is alive. He's been alive this whole time, and we're going to see him again after 33 years. For Joshua, the revelation was equally earth-shattering, learning that he was Trevor Halden, that he'd been kidnapped as a child, and that his entire understanding of his identity and origins was based on a lie. Detective Chen's investigation revealed that Linda Hartman had indeed been at the Conway Fall Harvest Fair on October 10, 1991, though she'd lived in Missouri and had no apparent connection to Arkansas or the Halden family. Linda's background showed that she'd lost her only daughter to a drug overdose in 1990, and her grandson, the real Joshua, had died from SIDS in early 1991 when he was just 3 months old, tragedies that had devastated her. Neighbors who'd known Linda in the early 1990s were interviewed, and several recalled that she'd become increasingly unstable after losing both her daughter and grandson, talking obsessively about wanting another chance to raise a child properly. One former friend remembered Linda mentioning in summer 1991 that she was planning to fix what had been broken and that she deserved to have a grandchild after everything had been taken from her. Chen theorized that Linda had traveled to the Conway Fair specifically looking for an opportunity to take a child, and when she'd seen Trevor go into the portable toilet alone, she'd positioned herself to grab him when he emerged. The woman in sunglasses and baseball cap that witness Ashley Morgan had described matched Linda's appearance in photos from that era, and the quick movement toward the parking lot aligned with someone executing a planned abduction. Linda had likely waited near the restroom, grabbed Trevor's hand as he exited claiming to be helping him find his parents, and had walked him quickly to her car before anyone realized what was happening. A 4-year-old would have trusted an adult woman who seemed authoritative and claimed to know where his parents were, especially in the confusion of a crowded fair with thousands of strangers around. Linda had driven immediately back to Missouri with Trevor, and over the following weeks and months she'd convinced him that she was his grandmother and that his previous memories were dreams or confusion. She told neighbors that her grandson Joshua had come to live with her because his mother was in rehab, a story that explained the sudden appearance of a child and deflected questions about his origins. The real Joshua had died at 3 months old, so no one in Linda's circle had ever met him or could contradict her claim that this red-haired 4-year-old was her grandson. Joshua, who'd been Trevor, had fragmented memories of life before Linda, but she'd told him these were imaginary, or from a time when he'd been very sick, and as a young child, he'd accepted her explanations. I remember flashes of being at a fair, of rides and animals, of people who weren't Linda, Joshua told investigators. But she always said those were dreams or fever memories from when I'd been ill as a baby, and I believed her because I was 4 years old. Linda had homeschooled Joshua initially to avoid questions about his background and lack of proper documentation, and by the time he entered public school at age 8, he'd fully accepted his identity as Joshua Hartman. She'd obtained fraudulent documents including a birth certificate for Joshua, using her deceased grandson's information, and these documents had been sufficient to navigate daily life without raising suspicions. The FBI investigation confirmed that Linda had been investigated briefly in 1991, when the tip about her suddenly having a grandson had come in, but agents had verified she had a biological grandson named Joshua and assumed the child was him. Without DNA testing readily available in 1991, and with Linda's story about getting custody from her daughter in rehab seeming plausible, investigators had cleared her and moved on to other leads. The system failed us twice, Jennifer told reporters. Once when someone took Trevor from a fair while we watched from 50 feet away, and again when they had him in Missouri and didn't realize it, because the technology to prove it didn't exist yet. Joshua struggled with the revelation of his true identity, working with therapists to process the trauma of learning he'd been kidnapped, and that the grandmother who'd raised him had been his abductor. Linda wasn't cruel to me, Joshua explained. She raised me with love and made sure I had everything I needed, but that doesn't change the fact that she stole me from my real family and robbed me of 33 years with them. The meeting between Joshua and his biological family was arranged for December 2024 with counselors present, and all parties approached the reunion with complex emotions spanning decades of grief and loss. Jennifer and Michael recognized elements of Trevor in Joshua's face despite 33 years of aging, and they brought childhood photos and videos to show him the little boy he'd been before Linda had taken him. "I'm sorry we let you go to that restroom alone," Jennifer said through tears. "We thought you'd be safe. We could see you the whole way. We never imagined someone was watching and waiting for that exact moment." Joshua looked at videos of himself as Trevor at the fair earlier that same day, seeing the blue-striped shirt and red hair, and he felt fragmented memories becoming clearer, though most of his early childhood remained inaccessible. Joshua chose to embrace both identities, legally becoming Joshua Trevor Hartman Halden, honoring the life he'd lived while reclaiming the name and family that had been stolen from him. Emma met her brother for the first time in 33 years, and while they were essentially strangers, they shared biological connection and the trauma of a childhood torn apart by Linda Hartman's crime. "I remember you vaguely," Joshua told Emma. "There's this impression of an older girl, someone who was nice to me, and when I saw your photo I felt something, like my brain was trying to tell me I knew you." Joshua's wife and 2 children were supportive of his journey, though they admitted the situation was surreal, learning that their husband and father had been a missing child from Arkansas, with an entire family who'd searched for him. The Halden grandchildren met their biological grandparents for the first time, and Jennifer and Michael were overwhelmed with gratitude to finally know their son and meet the family he'd built. "We missed everything," Michael said. His first day of school, graduation, wedding, the births of these beautiful children. 33 years of memories we can never get back, but we're grateful for whatever time we have now. The case brought international attention to the issue of children abducted and raised under false identities, and it inspired other adults to investigate their origins if they had questions about their early childhoods. Arkansas passed comprehensive legislation in 2025 requiring DNA testing of all children in questionable custody situations and creating databases to cross-reference against missing persons, reforms named Trevor Halden's Law. The law also mandated that public events with attendance over 1,000 people must have trained security personnel, surveillance cameras, and protocols for immediate lockdown if a child goes missing. Joshua established a foundation to help other families searching for long-term missing children, and to support adults who discover they were kidnapped as children and need assistance integrating their true identities. The foundation provided free DNA testing and genealogical research to anyone who suspected they might have been abducted, and within its first year, it facilitated 4 reunions between missing persons and their families. Jennifer wrote a book about the 33 years of searching and the miracle of finding Trevor alive, and the memoir became a bestseller, giving hope to other families of missing children. The Conway Fall Harvest Fair installed a permanent memorial at the fairgrounds with Joshua and the Halden family's reunion photo, along with text about child safety. Trevor Halden, taken 1991, found alive 2024, never stop hoping. The portable toilet area where Trevor had disappeared was relocated and redesigned with better visibility and security, ensuring that what happened in 1991 could never happen again in the same way. Joshua returned to the fairgrounds in October 2025 for the first time since his abduction, standing at the spot where he'd vanished and trying to connect with memories that were slowly becoming clearer with therapeutic support. "I don't remember the actual moment of being taken," Joshua said, "but I remember being at this fair earlier that day, the excitement and the rides, and then everything gets fuzzy, and the next clear memories are of being with Linda in Missouri." The therapeutic process of integrating his 2 identities took years, and Joshua worked with specialists who helped him understand that both Joshua and Trevor were authentic parts of who he was, complementary rather than conflicting. Michael and Jennifer relocated to Missouri in 2026 to be closer to Joshua and their grandchildren, finally having the family proximity they'd been denied for 33 years. The annual family gatherings became cherished traditions, with Joshua's children learning about their grandfather's hardware store in Conway and the history of the Halden family that had been hidden from them. Emma and Joshua developed a close sibling relationship despite the decades of separation, finding common ground in their shared experience of trauma and in building new family bonds. The case proved that DNA technology and genealogical databases are powerful tools for solving decades-old mysteries, and that adults should investigate their origins if anything about their early childhood seems unclear or unexplained. It demonstrated that children abducted young enough may not retain clear memories of their original families, making them vulnerable to being raised under false identities without knowing they were stolen. And it showed that families should never give up hope, because even after 33 years, missing children can be found alive, living normal lives under different names and unaware of their true origins. Joshua told reporters that learning he was Trevor Halden was both devastating and liberating, destroying the identity he'd known while giving him back a family and history he'd been denied. "Linda Hartman stole 33 years from me and my biological family," Joshua said, "but she couldn't steal my future, and now I have both families in my life, the one I built as Joshua and the one I was born into as Trevor." Jennifer and Michael lived to see not only their son found, but also the positive impact the case had on child safety legislation in other families, and they considered it a miracle they'd been given a second chance. The story of Trevor Halden, taken at age 4 from an Arkansas county fair and found alive 33 years later as Joshua Hartman, stands as one of the most remarkable missing persons cases ever resolved. It reminds us that 4-year-olds should be safe going to restrooms at fairs, that predators exploit brief moments of vulnerability, and that DNA technology can reunite families decades after hope seemed lost. And in Conway, Arkansas, where a little boy with red hair once went to use a portable toilet and never returned to his parents, his story lives on as proof that miracles can happen and stolen children can come home. Joshua continues his foundation work while maintaining relationships with both his Missouri community and his Arkansas family, living proof that even the most impossible cases can be solved with determination, technology, and hope. The toy dinosaur Trevor had carried in his pocket that October day was never found, likely discarded by Linda Hartman, but Joshua keeps a replica in his office as a connection to the 4-year-old he was and the family that never stopped searching.